Painting plants can be actually kind of tricky, but over the years I figured out it's not really that complicated. It just involves having the right colors and understanding a little bit the anatomy of plants. Hello and welcome. My name is Charlambos. I go by Bob. I am not your typical painter. And today I am going to talk about mixing colors for plants. This is going to be my first video of two about how to paint plants. In this video I'm going to focus on how to mix colors. And then the second one, which will be released later next week, will be more of an in-depth on how to actually paint the plants. I am currently working on a cat painting. And besides the cat, it also has a plant in it as well. And with all honesty, it doesn't even take up that much of the painting. It is literally about 5 inches by a little bit more than 2.5, which is a small section. But in that little section, there's quite a lot of challenges, such as different color leaves, vines, stems. And if you're trying to go for realism, you gotta paint very carefully and pay attention to the plant. And in this video, I'm gonna focus on tips on how to mix colors. You'll be surprised how many different variations of green there actually are. And I'm gonna show you how to mix some without actually using green for the most part. This right here is some of the greens I mixed earlier, just to give you an idea of all the variations. But I'll talk more about it later. All these variations were actually created using only 6 colors, mainly Cobalt Blue, Cerulean Blue, Cadmium Yellow, Cadmium Yellow Pale, and also to show an example how to darken or change the tone, some red was added and orange. No white, but white can be used to lighten leaves. Anyway, let's get to the demo. Here are the colors that I will use. As you can see, it's not a lot. It's kind of like going to Chipotle. It's good that they don't have many options because you know you will go there either for a burrito or a burrito bowl. Anyhow, I have my cadmiums here. Cadmium Yellow Light, Cadmium Yellow, and there's a difference where this is a little more orange-like and this is a little brighter. And then there's orange and red. Both cadmiums again. And lastly I have my Alizarin Crimson, and these are my warm colors that I will be using. And as for my cools, I don't have that many. I have Cerulean Blue, Cobalt Blue, and Viridian. This is the only green I will be using, and it won't even be really much for actually painting green. More on that later. I have my colors laid out now, the ones I pointed out earlier. One thing I want to point out is the best way to make greens is not to use greens out of the tube. So an example of this is how I'm going to show you Cerulean Blue with a little yellow. And you can get variations of different greens with these 2 simple colors. Like if you want to go brighter, use more yellow. And I already could tell I could use this in several areas. And I'm not going to say this is the amount I'm going to need for the whole painting. I might have to make more later. The next green I'm going to make is going to involve Cobalt Blue and also, surprise, Cadmium Yellow. This creates a slightly different kind of green. Because the blue has more warmth to it. And again, you can make variations by adding more yellow or by adding more blue. this will be good for some of the darker tones. Now, I'm going to show you how to make one of the darkest tones possible. And I made a video on it. It involves Viridian and a very tad amount of Alizarin Crimson. You do not want to overdo this, or it's going to turn very reddish. But with just a tad bit of Alizarin Crimson, you get a color that is very close to black. And depending on the balance, it could actually look like black or look like a dark green like I have here. And this will play a very important role to make things pop out. When you want to get extreme darks. As you can see, I have not really touched these colors yet. And that is because it's going to be paint as you go kind of scenario. There are some leaves that are on the darker tone. Either they're dried out or dying slightly. And they will require some, say, orange. And that was made from dabbing a little bit of my green that I made with Cobalt Blue and Cadmium Yellow. And you could also use red to darken some leaves even more. And when using red, you want to be very careful not to overdo it. As you can see, it actually overpowered it. But in some areas, it looks like it will be necessary to use that darker tone. So it's not a complete waste. And last but not least, I did not talk about another color that I will use. And that will be white. There's different whites. In this situation, I will be focusing mostly on titanium white. I got some titanium white now. And there's certain leaves that are actually pink. And the cadmium red is actually perfect to get it very close to what you need. And to show more examples, I also took some photos of the range of different greens you could create with those basic colors. Here are some examples of color range. I have here Cadmium Yellow Pale and Cerulean Blue. Notice the transition from more yellow to more blue. Here I have Cadmium Yellow Pale again, mixed with Cobalt Blue. Again, notice the transition from more yellow to more blue. To show another variation, instead of using Cadmium Yellow Pale, here's Cadmium Yellow, mixed with Cerulean Blue. I left the Cadmium Yellow Pale mixture on the top so you can see how much of a difference it makes in your color mixture, as Cadmium Yellow is definitely a little more orange. Same thing with Cobalt Blue. I left the Yellow Pale so you can see how much of a difference regular Cadmium Yellow makes. And for more variations, if you want to neutralize or darken the greens, here's how it would look if you mix Cadmium Orange with the Cerulean and Yellow Pale mixture. And this one here is if you mixed it with the Cobalt Blue and Yellow Pale green. As for another variation, Cadmium Red definitely darkens things a lot more. And here is how it would appear if you mixed it with Cerulean and Yellow. And lastly, how the red would appear with Cobalt Blue and regular Cadmium Yellow. But in a real life scenario, you would not make all those colors. You make the bulk of what you need and you improvise as you go. And here's an example of how my palette looked at the end of painting. It would appear that it was not many different variations, but I would adjust the color little by little as I paint it. But I guess what I'm trying to say in the end is yellow and blue make green, and you could create many different variations just from two basic colors like that. And my favorites are Cerulean and Cobalt Blue. And the Cadmium Yellows, of course. If you made it to the end, thanks for watching. If you guys like these kinds of videos where I go more in depth, let me know. I'll make some more. Also, for more of my work and photos, check out my Instagrams, Not Your Typical Painter, and also Not Your Typical Photos. Anyway, once again, my name is Charlambos. I go by Bob. I'm not your typical painter. Thanks for watching. Bye.